For this session, we're talking about strategies for choosing courses. And the difference between this session and the other admission category sessions is that those categories, being commerce, math and physical sciences, computer science, they're much more prescribed. When students choose programs that fall into those categories, they have a number of first-year courses that they're expected to take, leaving them less flexibility beyond those required courses. Within the humanities and the social sciences, most programs require very little in the way of first-year courses in order to get admitted to those programs in second year, which means that if you had decided you were going to choose, say, a specialist in English, and you were going to take a first-year English course, that leaves you a lot of space to choose other things. And the luxury of this is that you get to experiment in all sorts of areas, which you might find are areas that you decide that you want to do other programs in, or just pursue further in the way of a minor or a major, or just out of interest. So as a result of this session being humanities and social sciences and much less prescriptive when it comes to course selection, I've set up my slides in a little more general way to talk about both basics and some particulars that I think will be relevant to people, perhaps less so now than having heard it now. You'll find that it is helpful later. I realize that some of you here have had a chance to look quite closely at the course listings and look at the Arts and Science website. And for other people, maybe you haven't had a chance to look very closely yet. So for some people, what I have to say will be largely less exciting than it may be interesting for others. Also, we're talking about administration, so none of it is like incredibly fascinating, but the aim is for me to try and offer as much information that is helpful to as many of you as possible. And again, if you have questions, Jack is working the chat room, but he's also working another room as well as this room. We'll also, I'm going to try and sort of go from start to finish through my slides so that we can do the questions at the end, since that's probably the easiest way to do it. But Jack, if there's something that jumps out and you think it's really worth talking about, feel free to interrupt me.
Will do, Donald.
Thanks, Jack. So I'm also going to occasionally pull in the a Google page to help us with some of the things I'm going to share with you. And also, I just want you to see how I get to some information, because I think it's really important for you to know that while the Registrar's Office is here to answer all of your questions, we also aren't like prestidigitators working behind curtains. We have access to a lot of information, and we also like to help students figure out how to find that information, so that if we've been helpful once, you will decide that we could help you again later. So first slide, important dates. As of now, hopefully you've logged into the Quirkus page to see our Innis 101, but if not now, try and do it before course selection, because most of the information there in the first couple of chapters 2 and 3 in particular, are designed to help you get to course selection. On the 5th of July, you can check your start times for enrolling in courses. Let me just say now, I really hope no one is sitting down taking notes at the same time, because I'll repeat a lot of this stuff and a lot of it will just work its way into your consciousness. I don't think any of this is worth writing down. It's available in all sorts of locations, but I'm hoping that when this, that putting this in front of you now will be helpful. It will also be recorded and uploaded onto our Quirkus page. But what you do need to remember is that on July 22nd, you can start enrolling in your courses. And if you're going to put anything down, put this in your calendar. It's going to come up again in this session, but I can't stress enough, the 22nd of July is your best chance of getting the courses that you're hoping for. There's lots of planning that goes into course timetables at this university. So it's not as if a class that is limited to 25 is going to have 500 people wanting it. U of T does a better job than that. But from year to year, there may be 20 or 50 people who want a particular course. So there is some competition to get into courses. And understanding what we're going to talk about in the next 45 minutes and knowing that the 22nd of July is your start date is critical. There's also a start time, and this group happens to be really lucky. As you will see in a later slide, you will be the first into the system. But that also means setting your clock to get up, depending on where you are in the world. The 30th of July is also going to be significant to you, as will be clear in about 15 minutes, because that's when priority indicators are removed for courses. And so if you didn't have priority to get into a course in the first instant, you will get this priority on the 30th of July. September 1st is the date to pay your first installment of fees. And there was someone in the chat a few minutes ago who mentioned having a scholarship and was advised to defer until October. If you're going to defer, you need to be sure that you're officially deferring your fees before September the 1st. This is typically done through OSAP, but can also be done using a larger scholarship that covers more than your tuition. And we're happy to talk with you about this offline. In fact, you could just reach out. Jack is fielding these questions as well as any of us, Denise, Joe, Claudia, or I. Then in September, school starts on the 9th after you've had 3 days of orientation. The 17th, remember Denise said that you have 2 weeks to try out courses. Those 2 weeks will expire on the 17th of December this year. And by that point, if you are trying out courses, you need to be in the courses that you want by that date, because after that date, you can't get into them. You can drop courses, but you can't add courses. Sorry, 17th is when the wait lists are turned off. The 22nd is the end of 2 weeks of school. Oh, gosh. Okay. Real basics about courses in the timetable. And someone else asked in the chat about when the actual timetable is going to come out. And it's going to be late June, early July at the very latest. And it does make it a bit of a challenge to talk about course selection here. I will be using last year's timetable at certain points. But there's also a course listing that is available right now. But nonetheless, it's important to know that you're walking into the fall-winter session, and this session has 2 terms. It has the fall term, or the first term, that's what the F stands for, from September to December, and it has the second term, also called the spring term, that runs from January to April. And a Y course is a full year course that runs through both the first term and the second term. A Y section course is equivalent to a credit value of 1, and an F and an S is equivalent to a credit value of 1/2. But typically, you will take a full course load of 5 courses in first term and 5 courses in second term. Those could be 4 half courses and 1 full course in first term, and the full course carries over to the second term, where you also take another 4 half courses and a full course. But basically they add up to 5. I said should, and that is not an instruction. 5 is a typical course load. As you will see in about 7 minutes, you can actually take 6, but not advisable, as Denise has mentioned. You can also take less. It is not a race, but many students will choose to take 5 courses a year. You need to know that there are also a large number of students who will take 4 courses a year, or even 3 courses a year. And it's really what you feel comfortable with. Some people feel that just taking 5 courses is just too many in a given year, that you can't give all of your attention to 5 courses. And the fact is that when it comes to learning strategies, you will need to sort of figure out how to divide up your time between 5 courses. And if 5 is too many, there's no harm in doing 4 and coming for 5 years, especially if it means absorbing more information in this one period of time in your life where you have the luxury of being able to study. So anyway, again, 5 courses, you can take fewer, you can take as many as 6 in the fall, winter, but it's not advisable. And try balancing your courses, 5 in the first term, 5 in the second term, 4 and 4, as opposed to signing up for 6 and 3. Okay, a couple of more basics to consider. As you know, there are lots of options in this faculty when it comes to courses, and there's, as I mentioned earlier, new and traditional approaches to the same subject matter. In first year, though, there's it's not impossible to settle on a course within, say, the Department of English that interests you, or philosophy or economics. It's just be sure you read the course descriptions and know what it is that you're going to choose and what it is you might be missing out on if you aren't taking another course. Course descriptions are really helpful in explaining the differences between courses that may look somewhat similar. Also, while we can't really show you now, when the timetable comes out, you will be able, when the timetable comes out, at least 90% of the courses are going to have a specific time attached to them, and then you'll be able to create a timetable by dropping those times into the timetable on the course listing, or for that matter, doing it in Degree Explorer. And maybe about 10% of the courses will be online. One wonders if the very large courses won't start online, at least, while social distancing requirements are still being set in Canada. But anyway, when you're scheduling your courses, you will, if you have a work schedule or a personal schedule, you'll want to keep that close when you're juggling courses, because the same course might be offered in multiple different times and you need to choose one of those. When we're actually on campus, the campus is 180 acres, so it can be quite large, but if you don't have mobility issues, it's pretty fair to say that you can get pretty much anywhere across campus in 10 minutes, even from the West End to the East End. And I would say that putting courses back to back, that traversing from one spot to another is not necessarily the best reason not to do it. If you like to have some space between courses, that's a better reason. Also, when choosing courses, be sure you review the prerequisites, co-requisites, and exclusions, which are listed beside every single course in the calendar. And also, you'll see it copied into the timetable when it comes out. And then check enrollment indicators, which we're going to talk about more in a few minutes. There are navigating campus. Oh yeah, there's 10 minutes between classes, which is relevant to my 3 points earlier about navigating campus. And remember that there's always room in classes for, there's always room for small classes when you're choosing your courses, and that the first year foundations at Innis that Charlie Kyle has already talked about are definitely worth a close look. This is the campus for when you arrive. And typically, if somebody's talking about the west end of campus, they're talking about the part that is divided by this line, which is St. George Street. And when they're talking about the east side of campus, they're talking about anything east of Queen's Park Crescent. So it divides up. Nope, thought I had another slide, but that's gone. Okay, a couple more basics. Collect as much information as you possibly can. Attending this session is definitely a good start, but there's also other resources. Some people definitely familiarize yourself with the Arts and Science web pages, which I'll show you. I mentioned the blogs that can be quite helpful. Ask a Student and Starter Kit in particular. There's some Innis YouTube videos that will also be helpful. But when it comes to choosing courses specifically, sharing information with other first-year students is good. If you get a chance to talk to upper year students about particular courses, that can also be helpful. Remember, when you're talking to upper year students or anybody else, that they may be talking about a course, the same course, but it may have been taught by a different professor. So keep that in mind. If someone is raving about a particular course, you'll need to remember that you'll want to check to see if it was the same professor. Also, sometimes people rave about a particular course and their background is different from yours. And, you know, sort of one example that came up with one student was modern symbolic logic. And there was a student who happened to be in mathematical and physical sciences who really, really loved the philosophy course called Modern Symbolic Logic, and raved about it and told another student that this was definitely a course for that student to take. And that student actually found the course much more challenging because modern symbolic logic came more easily to someone who was a little more mathematically inclined. These are the things you need to keep in the top of your mind when you're collecting information, that it is information that you need to filter the information for your own benefit. As I said earlier, it's a little like doing research. You know, you collect everything that you can and you analyze it. Then you make an informed decision. And also, I've written here, class averages are pretty much the same. Oops, sorry, I have a nervous finger. Class averages are pretty much the same across all courses. They hover between sort of C+ and B-B. They can be slightly higher in first year foundation courses for a couple of compelling reasons, which I will share with you now. The first year foundation courses are, as you have already picked up on, smaller courses. They don't exceed 30 and often they don't exceed 25. When you're in a smaller class with a professor who knows you by name, you are more inclined to do your readings before class. it's more likely that you'll be called upon to speak up in class, or for that matter, volunteer to speak in class. And that sort of interactive learning and learning alongside 25 other people who are super interested in the same content matter just helps with learning. It's one of the reasons why the first year foundations are things that we encourage, because it's a really good way to familiarize yourself with and realize that the University of Toronto doesn't need to be as intimidating as somebody thinks when looking at it from a bird's eye point of view. Some strategies for choosing courses. I haven't already talked about strategies, but when you're putting your course selections together and you're looking for the times of those courses, start with the courses that are required for your programs. So if you're going to be doing political science, you'll want to slot your political science course first, and you'll actually want to slot the lecture first. Since there's so many tutorials in courses, when there are tutorials in courses, you could save slotting the tutorials until after you've put yourself in the lectures for all of the courses you're interested in. But the courses that have the highest priority are the ones that you'll want to slot a lecture for first. Use a convenient scheduling tool like the timetable planner, which is right there on the timetable. And I'll show you what I mean by draw timetable. This is the timetable for the Faculty of Arts and Science. And if we're looking at, say, Political Science 100, we want to see, this is last year's courses, but if I wanted to take Paul 100, one thing I'll say about this is you have to be careful with this site. The one glitch with the site is that if you're scrolling your cursor, it doesn't actually move. You have to scroll really fast to get past that first page. It happens in a number of pages, but if you're going to choose Political Science 106 because you're super interested in contemporary challenges to democracy, you just add it to your plan here, and then you go up later and you view your timetable plan, and it pops the course in the second term. Oh, there it is, Paul. Yeah, this timetable, okay. The plan needs some tweaking because it should also pop it in here in your schedule. Anyway, that's the timetable. I talked about balancing your courses between terms for both difficulty and variety. Important. While it is possible in many instances, particularly in the humanities and social sciences, we really don't recommend that you try and give yourself Mondays and Fridays off by scheduling all your courses on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays. Even if you have a work schedule, it's not the best idea to squish your entire university career into 3 days. And the fact is that some people say, you just have to spend 2 or 3 times as much time outside of class as inside of class. It's easier to put that time in when you've actually put a day aside to do school and you actually have some classes that day. So again, I add Mondays and Fridays, but some people think of getting Fridays off, not recommended. You can consider back-to-back classes because it is possible to get across the campus. Think about whether or not you can handle morning classes versus evening classes. And schedule accordingly. Some people wonder if in the second, like in the course Paul 106, is that harder than Paul 101? And it definitely does not correspond to the course being harder. Leave room for small courses and electives, reflect before signing up for second year courses. So if you're a first year student, as you all are, and you're looking at second year courses and thinking, I'd really like to take that. First of all, you can take it in second year, but secondly, if you're really leaning towards it, I would say a student who's chosen more than one second year course, probably worth talking to an advisor to see if that's a really good idea. But sometimes second year courses are the introductory courses in a program, and especially if the word introductory is in the title. So you may find that choosing a second year course with introductory in the title works really well for you. Check the prerequisites. If you meet them, you're all set. If the prerequisites are, if you feel that you have an additional complementary background that perhaps isn't listed as a prerequisite, while in the sciences it is harder to argue, in the humanities you may want to speak to the department and ask if there is a possibility for permission to take an upper year course, even if you're a first year student. But I would stress that the first year courses are hard enough. They're also designed to sort of help first year students learn at university. And that if you are planning on taking even 200 series courses, that you make an appointment with us to maybe review your course selection just to see that it makes good sense. Okay. There are some very big classes, and most of those big classes also have smaller tutorials attached to them. In pre-COVID times, we had 7 classes with enrollments between 1,000 and 1,500 students, and they were these courses, and they were taught in Convocation Hall. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, we'll have to see what happens with teaching in large classes like this. But U of T also has, there were 2 courses, they were both social courses that had enrollments of 850. And then there's another 20 courses that have enrollments between 350 and 500. And these are the buildings where they were taught, which will mean more to you when you're here. They are also, I can say, these large classes usually taught by some of our best instructors. And as I said, they have smaller learning opportunities and tutorials and labs. Now's probably a good idea, a good time to mention that when you have tutorials and labs, be sure you go and take advantage of them. And if you're at all stuck with anything, don't let it linger. Reach out and talk to a TA, reach out and talk to the prof, get back on track with school. Because it just improves your enjoyment of it, and it also improves your chances of doing well. We find we've admitted really bright students. You're all bright students coming into the University of Toronto. If there's anything that's going to get in the way of your doing well in first year, it may not be the complexity of the course. It may be your interest in the course or other things that are interfering with your ability to study. Reach out to us, and we can help sort of get you on the right track to make this a really enjoyable and productive learning experience. I say again, there are many smaller classes with enrollment caps of fewer than 40 students. They include the first year foundations, which we talked about. And if we have time at the end, I can show you some of these. But I'll tell you that most generally, the first year foundations all explore topics through interactive learning, which is one of the reasons, I did it again. One of the reasons why students find that they both enjoy them and do well. They're a great way to develop your writing and your presentation skills in a small class. And they can also help you hone your intellectual independence because you're working alongside a professor who knows you by name and can help you get over one of those humps that you might be experiencing that no one might pick up that you're experiencing in a larger class. Anyway, for students from any background, and conveniently, they also satisfy breadth requirements. And as I've said, they're the first year foundation seminars at Innis, and you heard Charlie mentioning some of these first year foundations. So if I go into a Google search and type first year foundations Innis, then that should bring us to the first year foundations at Innis. And it does. And so Charlie mentioned there's 13 courses. Let's see, what we have here is a list of the 13 courses on the Innis website. And interestingly, because we know some of the locations for these courses already, they've been popped in, but Charlie mentioned our vampires ourselves, taught by Boere from the Department of German, and you can click on that and it shows you a picture of Errol, gives a description of his course, gives you some information that's good to know. And we asked all of the professors doing this if they would fill out a get to know me professor edition form. So you can read more about the professors who are teaching the courses. Obviously, one's not going to do this for every course in the Faculty of Arts and Science, but because we had these 13 professors joining us in the first year foundations at Innis, and we thought it would be fun to sort of promote their courses this way. Definitely, you will have priority over other students if you are looking at an Innis first year foundations at Innis, which I will again show you towards the end. I think I have 15 more minutes, so I will get to that point later. Remember those synonyms and not so synonyms. Hopefully some of these things are looking more familiar to you already. That 100 series is first year. Arts and Science is the same as FAS. We figured out term and session, and some of these other things are yet to be mentioned, but Acorn. All right. Strategies for reading a timetable. I'm going to go first to this page. And when we were looking at political science, this popped up. And I mentioned that I would talk about enrollment controls, so here we are. Most courses have an enrollment control written. And if we go back here and go back to the timetable last year for Arts and Science, and I have to increase it to get to a course, and let's choose English, a 100 series English course this time. You will see that there's enrollment controls in yellow. The most popular enrollment control is the P. I'll just use this page. And the P enrollment control means priority, means some students are given priority access until a specific time. And again, sorry to bore those people who have already familiarized themselves with this, but you'll see when the timetable comes up, you click on the enrollment control and it tells you who has first crack at an English 100H. And in this case, it's everybody in first year, but not anybody in second year, third year, or fourth year. Sometimes this P is for people who are in the humanities and social sciences, but not people in mathematical and physical sciences or life sciences. Another, the P is by far the most popular, the most frequently used priority indicator. There's also E, which means you have to enroll in the department and you cannot enroll using ACORN. I'm going to skip A, E, and P for now, but point out R1. R1 means this is restricted at times for specific students. So English actually has one of these. R2 means restricted to groups of students until a specific date, at which time another group of students is available. Blah, blah, blah. What I'm going to do is show you, because it's much more helpful, if I can get, there we go. If we get past, if we look at the English 197 representing disability, which is actually one of the first year foundations at Innis course that we were looking at a minute ago. If you check this enrollment indicator, it says this section is restricted to 2 groups of students. Group 1 is given priority access until July 29th. You may recall you can choose your courses on the 22nd of July, and you can do that up until the 28th of July. Then the system is turned off on the 29th, and on the 30th, the priorities change. So in this case, group 1 has priority until the 29th when the system goes down. Well, this was last year's. And group 1 was Innis College students. So we expect that again this year, representing disability will give first priority to Innis students for the first week. And then there's no course enrollment for a day. And then we open up the next day. And then anybody who is a year 1 student can get into these courses. That is different from an R1 course, which means the course is restricted at all times to, in this case, year 1 Faculty of Arts and Science students. So that, sorry, let me get this off my screen. That gives you, oh, wrong page, there. Okay. I mentioned that E means you have to enroll in a department. Drama 200 is an example. If somebody is looking at the drama program, you'll see that Drama 200 is one of those 200 series courses you can take in first year, but you have to enroll through the department. It cannot be done on ACORN. AE means you need approval for the courses. There is, I can't think of a single first year course, so I won't linger on this, but it's described in the description of course enrollment controls. And PE is sort of easy to figure out. It is a combination of priority given to students in the first round, and then in the second round, it's going to be E, an enrollment indicator, meaning that indicates that you need to do it through the department. So again, my aim is really just to sort of draw these things to your attention and in some cases show you where they are on the website. In this case, we're looking at priority. The start dates are also on the Arts and Science website. And in the interest of time, because it's already 5 after, I'm going to assume that you have figured out where this is on the website. And if there are questions, I'm happy to show them, to show some pages on the website as I'm answering the questions. This I did want to bring to your attention. You choose your courses on the 22nd of July. And I said, make sure that you do this because it's your best chance of getting in. And I said the humanities get in first. Typically, how our system works is that groups of 500 students are allowed to join on the day of enrollment, 500 students at a time, because if we let all 6,670 students in, the system would crash. So instead, we let 500 students in at a time. That's 500 first-year students, and it starts by opening up at 9 a.m. That would be Eastern Daylight Time or Toronto time. for the Humanities and Social Sciences, which means that the group that I'm talking to gets in first, which is really great. Just make sure you set your clocks to wake up at 9. Then the commerce students get in. This is how it worked in the past. So it's most likely going to work the same way this year. I can't guarantee that, but it's very likely to proceed the same way. These times might change a little bit, but it will be in this order. First, the Humanities and Social Sciences get on, and then the Commerce, the Computer Science, and Life students get on. So, and then, as I mentioned, there will be the system shut. You enroll for a week, but really you want to get as many of your courses on the first day as possible. But if there was something that you couldn't get because there was a priority and you don't meet the priority first time around, you can get in the general enrollment period starting on July the 30th, 2021. And on that day, fourth year students get in first, then third year students, then second year students, and then first year students. Maximum course load. Now this is interesting. When you can get on starting on July the 30th, while in the first week, you can only put yourself in a maximum of 5 courses. From the 30th of July onwards, you can put yourself in a maximum of 6 courses. Again, 6 is not advisable to take, but it is a strategy to consider, signing up for 6 courses and then figuring out once you get the syllabus for the course, which ones you like the best. Some people know exactly what they want to take. They're set with the 5 courses, they sign up for them, they get them all, and they're all set to start school in September. But please don't feel that you absolutely need to stick to what you've chosen in July. There's lots of flexibility to move around and try other things, and that 6 courses is one of those convenient strategies for doing it. Also, remember we were talking about enrollment courses that have an E indicator, meaning that the department is going to put you in. If you're in 6 courses and the department is looking at admitting you to a course, they won't put you in because that would be a 7th course. So be very careful about this. If you're waiting to be put into an E enrollment course, don't be in a maximum load of 6, be in a maximum of either 5.5 if it's a half course or 5 if it's a full course. Okay. Then, if the course is full that you're hoping to get, keep in mind that I did say that the university is pretty good at looking at trends and figuring out how many students are interested in courses. And I mean, it's to the benefit of programs to admit as many people as are interested and genuinely, who are genuinely interested in their programs to admit them. But still, sometimes there are courses that are super popular that can't fit everybody in. And many courses have wait lists. So while everything is settling down in the Faculty of Arts and Science, and that happens, there's a lot of movement from July to September, including the fact that there will be students who are choosing courses here, but also at another university who decide not to come to U of T, and their spots will come available. People will add and drop courses. If you're on a wait list, you will be moved into the course. So I'm just going to read this slide for you. Many courses have wait lists. Those that do have a yes in the wait list column in the course listing. You can line up for these courses. If they're full and if another student cancels the course, then a space is available. And if you're next on the waiting list, you'll be enrolled automatically. An email notifying you of this enrollment will be sent to your U of T email account. However, if you're a first-year student and don't have a U of T email yet, you will be notified at the email address where you are receiving the messages that you're getting from Denise this summer. But once school starts, we will only email the U Toronto email address. Okay, and you can be on a wait list for up to 2 courses. And what was that? Yeah, and when the system is calculating how many courses you have, say when they're going to charge you, it includes courses that are waitlisted. Some people like to say that if a course waitlist is 10% of the size of the class, your chances are good of getting in. If you're really interested in the class, put yourself on the waitlist, no matter how long the waitlist is. Watch for final dates. I will show you this page in the Arts and Science calendar as well in a few minutes. But just know that these final dates are pretty definitive. If you can see this one, for instance, this is the tuition fee payment. You have to have paid your fee, the first installment of your fees, or officially deferred if you're on OSAP, say, by September the 1st. So this is the page that says the 22nd, is the first day to enroll for first-year students. Here's where the general enrollment is. The first day of classes. Anyway, helpful. Start times for first year foundations. I've already mentioned that the first year foundations at Innis, you are allowed, if you're an Innis student interested in the first year foundations at Innis, the first week is gives you priority. Okay, use your enrollment card. I've talked about 200 series courses already. So, and I've emphasized the importance of checking prerequisites. When you're putting yourself in courses, it's helpful to know that ACORN does not prohibit enrollment in 2 courses that overlap in time. Don't stay in 2 courses that overlap in time, but when you're doing your course selection, you can be in 2 at the same time. Okay. Time for questions. I had a few final slides before I take questions. U of T email is the way that we correspond with students, as I mentioned. That was relevant to the wait lists, where I said, well, we will send messages to your non-U Toronto email until the beginning of school. Once school starts, you have to use your UT mail, plus you can forward it to other emails if you want. Final advice for enrolling in courses. Oh yeah, the ACORN system is really pretty intuitive, and there's also some helpful videos if you are interested. But again, 22nd of July, if I haven't made that clear, I have failed in my presentation today. You can save your plans in the enrollment cart, and when planning, schedule your lectures first and then your labs and your tutorials. More advice. The courses, oh yes, the courses in your enrollment cart will not be added automatically when your course enrollment period begins, which is why I've said be sure to set your clock and wake up and log in when you need to, because you need to put yourself in the courses one by one. The enrollment cart is just a holding cart. Okay, finally, don't enroll in the same course in both terms. Be sure you pay your fees. Your fees invoices on ACORN. Again, it's going to be really obvious because paying fees is kind of important. I'm going to move on from this. Some students who are registered with accessibility services are eligible to pay tuition that is assessed on a course-by-course basis, rather than paying the program fee, which is the program fee is a fee that you pay for courses, for any number of courses between 4 and 6. And if you are eligible, sorry, you'll want to contact Accessibility Services or the Innis Registrar's office for more information. I have finally to say, what is registration? Registration is enrolling in courses, paying your tuition by September the 1st, and then the system will register you. And if you're registered, then you don't lose your courses. But if you aren't registered on the 1st of September, if there's not an REG beside your name, then you'll be removed from the courses that you signed up for on the 22nd. So just remember to pay. Here are the important dates again, which basically repeats the first slide. So we're done with that. And my final slide, well, I have 3 other ones after this, but there's a lot of support available, but doing things correctly and completely does fall to the student. So collect as much information as possible and use a critical lens and reach out to us for any questions. And just remember that there are some tips. I could leave this page up here while I say, if there are any questions at all, now is a great time to ask them.
Hi, I have a question.
Yeah.
So for first year, how many electives do we have?
It actually depends on what programs you're interested in. In many cases, you might have 4 electives. If you're thinking of doing, say, a specialist in something like English, they just say, you know, take a first year course. So then arguably everything else is an elective. Because you're in the humanities or the social sciences, I would think of it, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily sort of label them as electives, but as courses that may potentially turn into program requirements. Do you see what I mean, Jessica?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I have a question as well. I've heard that you have to like you have to be in like certain tutorials and stuff, right?
Okay, is that the end of your question, Evan?
Yeah, well, I don't remember. I remember seeing that somewhere where they said that you
Yeah,
must
so-
be in certain tutorials or learning.
Wow, I think I can hear you turning pages. Let me say that maybe the question has come up because, first of all, when you're choosing courses, always choose your lectures before your tutorials. But also, Evan, the funny thing is there's every once in a while you find a course that doesn't list tutorials on the timetable, and yet there are tutorials. And you know there are tutorials because when you checked the calendar for the course, say, you saw in, let me just go to the calendar, FAS, and let's go to the program listings, A to Z, and let's go to, I don't know, let's go to economics. And if we go to economics and we scroll down to a course like Echo 101.
Donald, can I jump in for a quick sec?
Yeah, Jack.
Yeah, so I follow Donald along on the calendar right now. But yes, Evan, you are correct. There are some courses, particularly the larger courses, that will specify for your tutorial enrollment that it corresponds to a specific lecture section. This is usually because the lecture sections correspond to a specific instructor who has a particular team of TAs. So when you are investigating your courses and you're taking a look at the courses you want to enroll in, just make sure you take a close look at the lecture sections and the tutorial sections to see if there are any specific instructions like that. One of the things that's in the timetable, there will be like information bullets that are at the top. So just read through everything at the course lists because it will be very clear if you have to enroll in a particular competition.
Jack, give us an example.
Last year, I think Eco 101, I'm pretty sure was one of the courses that did this. I'm pretty sure. So let's hopefully I'm not totally.
I think you're right. Was it in the delivery instructions?
So this looks very similar to the kind of thing you will see in this example. You know what, Donald, do you want to scroll down to where the tutorials are and just open up one of the enrollment controls? Just additional, go down to S and go to the additional course information. And
I'm sorry, Jack, what?
So this just hold here so everybody can see Eco 105 Y1Y. You will see it'll be within the timetable instructions. If there are instructions specifically for, again, which lecture and which tutorial correspond to which, that'll be where you see it. Again, it'll be written down very clearly in the timetable, so don't worry about it being in some kind of arcane language you don't understand. It will be clear, so just make sure that you read through those sections in each course you are interested in, because I'll cover it there.
Great, thanks, Jack. Evan, does that help?
Yeah, that's what I meant, the lectures and tutorials. How do we like enroll into those though?
How do you enroll into them?
Yeah, like the lectures and stuff.
Oh, you go on to Acorn. Jack,
Okay.
or does that, yeah, Acorn is actually pretty intuitive when you get there, Evan. You probably don't even need to watch the videos. It's going to be pretty clear and you can experiment, but I do suggest that everyone log into Acorn before the 22nd, just to, familiarize yourself with it. You can put them in the cart, but just remember, Evan, the cart doesn't enroll itself. So you've got to go in and then just enroll, like click enroll for each one of the courses.
Right, yeah, I've heard about that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Just to riff off of that, Donald, just because Kat's question in the chat is related, and I think I speak faster than I type. Part of the Acorn enrollment process is you will be selecting the specific lecture sections, tutorial sections, and so on that you are enrolling in the course. It will just let you enroll in these courses, even if you are enrolling in two courses at the exact same time. It is your responsibility as a student, as Donald mentioned before, to be aware of the conflicts that you're enrolling yourself in, because you could do that. We strongly recommend you do not do that. You should not do that, particularly because if any conflicts for any tests or anything emerge because of this, it's on you. You're in trouble. You're screwed basically. So make sure that you are mapping out your timetable carefully and choosing courses that are at different times.
Thanks, Jack.
I'm sorry, I just have something to ask in regards to getting the U of T email address. Do we compulsorily need it to be able to enroll in classes, or can we just do that with our normal email?
So I'll tell you, you can enroll, you can log into Acorn without having a user email. Because you have join, you have your join ID, you can do all the things that you need to sign up for courses before September. But what you would want at some point over the summer is elevate your join to a user ID. Jack, you want to add something?
No, nothing to add. Just, yeah, you can totally do your enrollment with the join ID, but do make sure that you get your mail.utoronto figured out ASAP because you will need it.
Yeah. And in fact, yeah, like there's things that, even though you'll be able to log into Quirkus and see your courses with a join ID, you won't be able to do specific things. So you absolutely have to get you have to elevate your join ID to a user ID. Like you can't do quizzes, for instance. So you could see stuff in your class, but you won't be able to do quizzes and get marks. So, and since you could do it in the
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yep.
I just had a question regarding, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thanks.
Oh, okay, I just want to make sure. If we wanted to like talk to a guidance counselor, like you know, what are we, or I don't know if they're called guidance counselors at U of T. I don't know what they're called, but for like, you know, what courses we should go into, you know, that kind of stuff. How would we go about getting an appointment or anything like that?
Yeah, Jonathan, absolutely. And you would just, if you can, if telephoning is easy, the easiest thing to do is call Jack, and Jack will book you an appointment with one of the advisors, likely Denise, and she can go through all of this. You'll do an online appointment, so she can also show you the links at the same time. But totally.
All right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome, Jonathan.
Hi, if I could just add one more question. I know there was a message that we could wrap up. I'm hoping this could be a bit fast.
Go for it.
So you mentioned about having electives. You can have as many electives as we can if we are fulfilling our main course requirements. For example, if I want to double major in going off your example, political science and English, for example, would you recommend if I'm aiming for 5 courses to take an even distribution of 2 English courses and 2 poli-sci courses plus perhaps 1 elective or something along the lines of that?
If you're interested in political science and in English, and you've looked in the calendar, so you've seen you could do an English program without doing any first-year English courses, but that seems like a silly thing. So you would take a first-year English course or 2 half courses in English maybe. And then if you're interested in political science, you would take a first-year political science course. Really, Justine, after that, you could take whatever you want. So you could take additional Pol courses as long as check when you're taking the courses that you're not taking courses that are exclusions to others. But take courses that you think would complement those programs. Or if maybe there's a 3rd program that you're thinking, gee, maybe I'm interested in this. I would like to take an unrelated course. Spend some time with the calendar before the 22nd of July, because it's great that you have some idea already of what you want to take. You will likely have learned in the last hour that there are so many options at the university that there might be something that you haven't thought of that is equally interesting to you. Like maybe it turns out that international relations is something that you didn't realize was a program, but you would like to sort of see what it would take to get into that after first year. And that might dictate the additional courses that you take. So when I said flippantly early, don't think of anything as an elective, but a future program requirement, I actually kind of meant it. What do you think? Does that help?
I see. So as long as I take 1 course in each of my potential majors, I'm fine, right? Oh, okay.